Hey everybody, this is going to be a quick one. I was making my next video that'll be coming out soon, and I just realized that I glossed over something, so I wanted to make a separate video about it. See, I want to talk for a moment about different gap filling methods, especially for larger models. Now, when I was building this Knight Kitan that you will see very soon, he had a few big gaps because of the way that I built him. He's kitbashed from a couple of different sources of model, not even different models. The top half is from a Lord of Skulls. The bottom half is a resin print of an oversized pair of Space Marine legs, and that created some gaps that I had to fill in. I took a Dremel to the legs so that I could get the body to fit to it just as well as I possibly could, but then I had these large holes that I had to take care of, and there's a few different techniques that I used. So here is 4 different gap filling techniques that I used just on this one model. The first method is to use a filler material. In this case, I used a piece of a yard sale sign, as I tend to do, and I cut this into little strips that I could fit into the larger holes that needed to be filled. And I'm kind of modeling this in a way that I will be able to get away with saying this is like a metal skirting material, piece of a blade of armor, something like that. And I'm just going to glue those in place to get those really large holes covered up. After the largest of gaps are covered up, I'm going to utilize the baking soda and super glue method. This is great for creating really strong bonds between pieces, especially if you've got a couple of large, unwieldy, or poorly balanced, poorly weighted pieces, but it's also great for filling smaller gaps. Whenever you mix super glue and baking soda, it creates a kind of hard plastic almost instantly. So you can either wet an area with super glue and then sprinkle in baking soda, which is mostly what I did here, or you can put baking soda into a crevice or a hole and then drip super glue into it to create that same effect. You cannot mix them before you apply them. They will become instantly cured, and you do have to be careful about the fact that you're going to create some grit in what you're building. So you want to make sure you're not getting kind of overflow and spilling out onto smooth surfaces of the model. And that is something that I have to deal with here. I did create a little bit of a rough surface in some places. What I did to fix this was I used my X-Acto blade and I used some nail files to smooth out as much as I could and reshape the areas where I built up a little bit too much. And for the most part, that'll do you just fine, depending on what you're doing. You can also do this in such a way that it looks like welds, or you can do what I'm doing with this model. The third technique that I'm going to utilize in conjunction with the previous one, we're going to hide it as something else. We're going to take the element of that gritty gap fill, and for this build, I'm going to use it as a rust texture. So now it is no longer a rough gap fill, it is a good rust emulation. And the fourth and final thing we're going to do when it comes to this large gap filling is we're going to ignore some of it. Not all of it really needs to be taken care of. There is a large gap here under his torso where his like abs meet the top armor plate for the chest for the Lord of Skulls. Nobody's going to see it. Nobody's going to see it. We're just going to leave it be. There's plenty of model kits where they have some gaps if you were to look at it at the wrong angle, and I think it's a pretty safe bet that nobody's really going to be picking it up, looking at it from the underside and saying, hey, how come you left a gap behind 3 separate armor panels where nobody was going to see it? It's fine. Anyway, now that this has become an impromptu part 2 to my Iron Warriors Knight Kitan build, you can check out part 1 here where I built and painted the base for it. And then if you want to hit like, subscribe, check out notifications, then you will see when part 3 comes out when I paint this beastie using a chrome spray paint to get the true metallic effects. And hopefully I'll be seeing you around.